Good morning, all. A very warm welcome to our eminent speakers who are here for the inaugural session. Dr. Surendra Ahirwar, Joint Secretary, Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Mr. Bharat Joshi, Co-Chairman, CII National Committee of Logistics and CEO of J-Curve Ventures. Mr. Prasad Kurup, Vice President and Senior Partner, Asia Pacific IBM Consultant. Participants from industry, ladies and gentlemen, a very good day to you and a very warm welcome to our over 1,000 participants who have registered. It is indeed very heartening to see the overwhelming participations from our logistics stakeholders. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to the Logistics Summit 2022, themed Sustainable Logistics Ecosystem, Vision 2027, very relevant in these times with the changing geopolitical challenges as well as our sustainability obligations. I'd just like to give you a brief introduction to our eminent speakers in our inaugural session. Their work, of course, speaks for them and precedes them. We are privileged to have with us as our special guest, Dr. Surendra Ahirwar, Joint Secretary, Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Ahirwar has wide experience in managing and upgrading the railways and road logistics related to steel plants and in passenger marketing and amenities development in Indian Railways. He has been involved in the integrated development of logistics in India, overseeing the development of the National Logistics Portal, the E-Logistics Marketplace of India, and the EXIM Trade and Public Procurement Portal. His areas of expertise are in public-private partnership in infrastructure development, conflict resolution, and crisis management. Our sincere thanks and a special welcome to you, sir. A special word of welcome to Mr. Bharat Joshi, Co-Chairman, CII National Committee on Logistics and CEO of J-Curve. Bharat has always had stimulating talks and we look forward to what you have to say today as well, Bharat. Bharat serves on the boards of 3 companies of the Joshi Group as Executive Director. He is an alumnus of the University of Bradford and is pursuing his operations management at the Harvard Business School. It is also my privilege to welcome Mr. Prasad Kurup, Vice President and Senior Partner, IBM Consulting. Mr. Prasad is responsible for project delivery, capability enhancement, and business development. His projects entail business process transformation, developing technology strategy, and partnering with clients for successful implementation. I'd also like to thank members of our conference steering committee who have been responsible to bring their expertise to bear on development of the concept as well as the theme for the Logistics Summit 2022. Mr. Aditya Shah, Executive Director, VTrans India, Mr. Rahul Marathe, Professor, IIT Madras, and Mr. Prasad Kurup, Vice President and Senior Partner, IBM Consulting. And before I hand you over to our eminent speakers, I'd just like to dwell upon a few significant initiatives that have been undertaken by the CII Institute of Logistics. The first, of course, is the establishment of the CII Warehouse National Network, a national warehousing movement open for all stakeholders in the Indian warehousing industry. The movement focuses on connecting every warehouse in the country, irrespective of size and location, and to achieve 3 key objectives in warehousing: evolution, efficiency, and empowerment. A report has also been submitted on logistics standards through the voluntary adoption of racking, handling, transport, palletization, roofing, and flooring standards, which has been accepted as a referral document by the Ministry of Commerce. And recently, a major project has been completed under the India-Japan cooperation The project resulted in establishment of warehouse Kaizen practices in India and continued cooperation in the area of quality improvement. And finally, completion of the consultation process related to state logistics and warehousing policies. The focus states include Maharashtra, UP, Assam, Tamil Nadu, and Haryana. The actionable recommendations are available in the report Building Logistics Capitals for those of you who may be interested. This edition of Logistics Summit spotlights ongoing logistics sustainability initiatives in India and overseas. 3 technical sessions will focus on deliberations related to initiatives, challenges, and good practices in achieving sustainability goals, talent management, and emerging technologies in the logistics sector. The technical sessions will focus on sustainable logistics, clean, green, and circular. The second one is on maximizing logistics productivity through real-time supply chain visibility and new visibility in logistics talent, which is really a crunch that many of us are facing today. So over to you, Mr. Prasad Kurup, Vice President and Senior Partner, Asia Pacific, IBM Consulting, to give the theme address.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate and very humbled by the opportunity to talk to all of you this morning. Incidentally, it's exactly 30 years back when a young engineer passed out of college and joined this lovely company called Bajaj Auto. And in the ceremony that happens, you get a chance to talk to the promoters, the CEO, etc. And I was wondering, what should I ask Mr. Bajaj? And the question then I asked is, look, obviously, as somebody who was very passionate and very emotional about the company surviving and succeeding in the marketplace, I said, sir, I know those days we used to have bikes, scooters, and 3-wheelers, and I was in the Aurangabad plant. So, do you have any plans to go on to diesel auto rickshaws? Okay, the disparity of price on petrol and diesel was very evident for a novice like me passing out of college. And the response was very simple. Look, son, it's going to take, we are ready. We have the technology. We will do it when we get critical mass because we have a particular positioning in terms of price and our game plan is aligned to that. Cut the chase, and 30 years now, when I talk to my clients in the automotive sector, my question is, can I get your EV plans? Can I know your charging station plans? Can I know the landscape that you're going to set down in the country and in every possible society and every possible nook and corner on charging stations? That's been the journey, I guess, pretty much all of us have been traversing through, from moving from what possibly was a bit more of a cost control and a cost focus to a very green sustainability focus out there. I know we are not yet there, but the most satisfying part for me was the journey is pretty much embarked upon, and the newer generation is only accelerating that journey. So that's been a bit of a reflection for me in the morning as to how times have changed and what more importantly beholds for us as in the future out there. And the topic for today, I think what I would draw upon the attention for all the participants is it's Vision 2027. It's not something that is here and now, but everything that we do here is actually going to impact and help us make a very clear forward step towards that 5-year vision. Just to take a landscape, a larger global view. Right? Globally, we all know that the nations have committed to a net zero carbon emission by 2050, and India is not far behind. India has committed to it by 2070, but more importantly, it's up the targets for 2030. And what that means at a national level is that there's going to be almost like a spend of over $1 trillion that we will have to do as part of our achieving targets out there. That at a national level, and that you can imagine, as countries take targets, it means that organizations that participate and contribute to the nation building also have to make their move and start committing to that. So every global company, every company across the globe has already made that news. And therefore, there will be a connected ripple effect that will come down the supply chain to all of us, you and me individually, both from a corporate standpoint and also from a personal standpoint. And by that, if I were to throw a few examples, right? FedEx, largest airline cargo, has set up their target to achieve a net zero carbon neutral operations by 2040. Deutsche Post, DHL Group, and UPS have set up a target of getting to carbon neutrality by 2050. This is just the mission statement, But underlying this, underpinning this is almost like a $2 billion investment for FedEx, and very set of clear actions that UPS and DHL are doing. If I were to kind of do a bit of a broad brush, it is in the area of vehicle electrification, sustainable energy, carbon sequestration, the whole last mile delivery that DHL is driving. More importantly, the focus on getting green specialists on board. There is a different talent that is required in this journey out there. And companies are very clearly focusing on building that talent as we speak out there. UPS's whole objective is also underpinned by its enhanced disclosure. Companies are being far more open in terms of their ESG reporting. And that, I mean, coming from a tech company myself, we are seeing a big shift in terms of the amount of demand and the amount of conversation in the whole ESG space that is there. So in this backdrop, and if you look at, again, juxtaposing with today's agenda and what is happening, I see a bit of convergence around three worlds out here, right? There is the whole financial world, okay, which got to back it up with investments. There is a whole technology world, which has got to execute it from a platform, and by technology, I just don't mean IT technology, but all kind of technologies put together, manufacturing, connected solutions all put together, and the talent domain. So I see a bit of a convergence and very clear pathways for all three domains coming together. Financial institutions are very clearly earmarking funds for sustainability. There are targets set for them to invest on sustainability projects. And therefore, that will give a very much needed impetus, and more importantly, the vision getting translated into actions. Technology companies, I mean, I can go on and on that one, but fundamentally, you will hear things like connected solutions, using AI, using cloud, using blockchain, using automation, all of these technologies converging towards doing a very few things in life that we always grew up with: providing visibility, providing connectivity, giving optimized solutions, and giving the much needed ROI to justify the business case. That is the whole technology platform, and the entire technology gamut of companies are driving on that one. And the last part, which is the whole talent part, right? In terms of, and this is an evolving, I mean, today, I think all of us are literally losing sleep on talent, irrespective of the industry we are in. I mean, this whole shift of workplace, work content, and the quote unquote great re-evaluation, you call it the great resignation, whatever. But that has meant for people looking for newer purposes at the workplace. And therefore, the talent priorities are also changing as we speak out there. And that is a much needed essence to make this journey a successful one. So, I mean, that's the big picture. So therefore, one zooms down to the agenda for today, I mean, it's pretty much a beautiful blend of, in terms of sustainability, in terms of technology and talent, all coming together. They are, in a sense, I wouldn't say mutually exclusive, but they're quite nicely intertwined, to be honest, while having its own set of independent and unique points out there. Just to dwell a bit upon sustainable logistics, I mean, if I were to use a bit of a broader definition, it is to look at, obviously, if companies that we're working with are focusing on a few elements on that one. Environmental, very clearly, financial, and more importantly, the whole social practices are there. So the intent is to minimize the ecological footprint around carbon emissions, around noise pollution, around accidents. That is what we're looking at from a sustainability standpoint. And more importantly, it is to kind of not just look at the financial gains, but also to look at the environmental efficiency of companies that suppliers, I mean, all companies, logistics suppliers, etc., therefore looking to balance between the financial, environmental, and the health of the society out there. And if you were to therefore drill down what's happening out there, things that we always grew up saying, right? I mean, end-to-end visibility, getting more closer to the customer, the last mile warehouses, those pop-up warehouses, using alternate vehicles, using alternate fuel technologies, optimizing on-site resources, planning, exponential technologies being used, and so on and so forth. The big area that we're also looking at is looking at better packaging material, not just for the onward and return journeys, but also looking at environmental friendly packaging. And just to kind of give you an example on that one, Corona Beer actually has got into a net zero plastic footprint thanks to its initiatives on sustainability by converting leftover barley from farmers to harvest and create paperboard drinks instead of plastic. So there is contribution possible in every possible dimension and value chain of the logistics industry is the point I would want to make out here. There is also this, I mean, the examples are known around the JLR setting up a net zero logistics park okay, in UK, so that the whole community becomes net zero through ways and means of around friendly environmental action. Let me kind of also give you a soundbite from what we did in last year, around Q4 of 21. So we launched this massive global study across the globe, okay? So we covered 40 countries, we covered 28 industries, and we spoke to over 3,000 CEOs, purely from a transformational sustainability standpoint. And lo and behold, no surprises. The priority, and we would kind of talk to them about 8 or 10 parameters, technology, regulatory, financial, all kind of stuff. Lo and behold, this year's study was very, very clear. Sustainability was standing way, way, way ahead of the other factors. In fact, it jumped over the previous year's study by over 37%. Just to show that where CEOs today are losing sleep and wanting to focus on it. And they're very clearly feeling the pressure of sustainability from the board members, from the investors, on every action having to be demonstrated. I mean, not just thought through, but demonstrated in terms of what is happening out there. And therefore, from a CEO's crystal ball standpoint, they are expecting investments to kind of go significantly high in this area. Is it easy? The answer is no, because fundamentally they also understand, look, there are challenges around what is the ROI? How do I justify the investment? Do I see returns now, or is it a return for the future? Those are the challenges that are coming out there. To therefore net it out, I mean, and this is my final last couple of minutes of summary out there. If I were to segment what's in it for you as individuals and what's in it for you as corporations, right? As individuals, as participants, the message is very, very clear. Embrace the personal responsibility for your organization's sustainability agenda. It is you and me who's got to drive this part. Okay? That's point number one. It cannot be done without the infusion of right technology. And again, by technology, I don't mean just IT, but manufacturing, hardware, software, everything, every kind of technology is an integral part of the journey. So for all those who are suffering from tech phobia, I had that issue in the past. I've learned to grow over it, or at least live with it. So that is the other part of it. Driving the talent agenda. I think that's what is the personal agenda or messaging that I would leave for the teams. From a corporate standpoint, what do you do? Where do you start the journey? And in that sense, I would say three things, right? You've got to first measure compliance. It is all about ESG reporting. It is all about carbon accounting. Without a baseline, companies are finding it very, very difficult to earmark where do I head for my journey ahead. The second is a specific solution, whether it's HSE, optimization, sustainable supply chain, intelligent assets, solutions, and so on and so forth. That's the second layer. And the third part is the entire business model innovation around partnering with sustainability companies, because I think that will drive the network effect to contribute to them. On that note, I'm going to hand it back, but good luck to all the speakers, all the participants as well, and looking forward to a great session, man.
Thank you very much, sir. That was really a very interesting discussion and very relevant today. I'll be making the summary and the concluding remarks at the end of the session. But what you've touched upon is something that I think we are all seized with today, especially ESG. So thank you very much, Mr. Kuru. We'll now move on to our next speaker, Mr. Bharat Joshi, Co-Chairman CII National Committee on Logistics and CEO of J-Curve Ventures Private Limited. Bharat, may I request you to kindly deliver your special address? Thank you.
Dr. Ahirwar, Ms. Mirchandani, colleagues from the CII Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On the 24th of February 2022, I had an opportunity to chair a technical session at the DST-CII India-Singapore Technology Summit. And this was themed Building Economies for the Future. And the session focused on digitalizing supply chains through innovation and automation. It is a classic theme of a trilogy: digital, innovation, and automation. The convergence of these three focus areas in supply chains will always open new vistas to progress. And today is the 22nd, so within 4 months, this logistics summit is working towards a 5-year action plan with the focus theme, Sustainable Logistics Ecosystem Vision 2027. At the CII National Committee on Logistics, which I co-chair, a well-organized or several well-organized working groups always try and keep pace in order to take quick steps to progress on these initiatives. A great example, perhaps, for sustainable logistics ecosystem can be drawn from the electrification of Indian railways. The railways have transformed significantly from coal and fossil fuel-based trains to electric engines. Such a transitionary trend is beginning to emerge also in road transportation. The communication and location-based tracking systems are fundamental for railways' success and safety. And with 5G around the corner, the visibility and real-time tracking of cargo in any mode of transportation is going to be a game changer in logistics effectiveness. I was thinking about the areas of innovation and automation in logistics systems, and there are many emerging technologies which are being piloted and operationalized indeed, be it drones, AI, blockchain, big data analytics, or cloud technologies. The long-lasting challenges are being answered here and now and in very effective ways. However, we are yet to find answers for challenges related to sustainable logistics, clean, green, and circular. The CII National Committee on Logistics is working on a logistics standardization, and this initiative will perhaps provide some answers to begin with. I'm sure that the first technical session would certainly weigh some of these points. 2027, as I mentioned earlier, is just 5 years away. And to achieve our climate action targets of 2030, we must succeed in identifying actionable recommendations through this summit. It will be very important that industry and our other stakeholders engage in respective roles to honor these recommendations and take necessary actions to follow them through. I'm looking forward to seeing the 10-point agenda at the end of the summit. And with that, I conclude. It's my very pleasant privilege to invite my dear friend and mentor, Dr. Surendra Ahirwar, Joint Secretary, DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, to kindly provide his inaugural address. Sir, to you.
Thank you, my friend Bharat, and good morning to you all, Mr. Mirchandani, Mr. Mahidar, and rest of the colleagues in the conglomerate of the logistics industry. Thank you so much for inviting me for the summit and for this opportunity for giving an opening address. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to be in the midst of the intellectuals of the logistics industry, and I can see the smiling face of endorsement. Thank you very much. So good to have this conversation, and I really congratulate CII for initiating such conversation and taking them forward. And I was hearing and marking it that you are looking at noting down those recommendations or the ideas which have been given here, and then you can kind of further work upon them, I hope. So it's really wonderful initiative, and such initiatives, I think, brings to the fore the logistics and the concerns of the logistics sector. And it also attracts attention of the people who matter, the policymakers or the determinants among the business people. So good to go forward, and I wish all the best for this initiative and the Logistics Summit 2022, which is about sustainable logistics ecosystem, our vision 2027. So yeah, I can, as an input for this conversation and for this initiative, I can emphasize that yes, the importance of logistics is definitely going up, just not because we are talking about it, but because of the basic reason that the demand is increasing, the expectations of the people, expectations of the consumer sector, consumer when I say consumers of the logistic services, their expectations are increasing in terms of the quality of services, the cost of services, and the desired resilience in the services. I mean, we have established to a large extent during this pandemic that yes, we can respond to the emergent call, and we can adapt to the newer situations. However, we have learned a couple of lessons also, maybe the do's and the don'ts, or the larger objectives which should be pursued to ensure even a better response during such contingent situation, extreme situations like COVID pandemic. And pursuing this idea of expanding capacity of the infrastructure, logistics infrastructure to say, improving the quality of services and improving efficiency of these services in the sector. Government of India have taken a couple of initiatives, and in fact, you can say very comprehensive approach has been adopted for not only improving infrastructure, but also to address the softer component of it, the human resource or the services, the digital technology, which can be adopted to make these services more efficient, cost-effective, and user-friendly. So if I am to classify these two broad, the entire sector into two broad subsectors, one is, or the components to say, one is of course the infrastructure component, and another is the services component of logistics. To address the infrastructure component, that is to expand its capacity and to have the state-of-art technologies adopted for development of such infrastructure. We have initiated, as you all know, Honorable Prime Minister launched on October 13th of last year, the PM Gati Shakti initiative. Along with that, the National Master Plan, which is a very important and vital component of PM Gati Shakti. Now, I'll just briefly explain about it, not take much of your time, but just to put to rest your curiosities and your queries, which I can anticipate to an extent. What is PM Gati Shakti all about? It's basically a mechanism, and I'll rule out the outsiders. So it's not a scheme, it's not a program as such in a strict sense of the government programs, but it's an approach and a mechanism to facilitate accelerated infrastructure development and to provide and attain seamless multimodality in the logistics sector. If I'm to say one single sentence which can explain the entire Gati Shakti initiative. So under this initiative, we have further two components, as you have to have Gati, so the acceleration in the process of infrastructure development. And second is, of course, putting whatever power resources we have on the government side, and also will take private sector resources to attain that accelerated development of infrastructure. So these two components means the power component, if I am to identify from the Gati Shakti initiative, it is the administrative structure, which is in form of empowered group of secretaries, having around 16 to 17 secretaries from different ministries, which are infrastructure ministries or the user ministries. They are represented in an empowered group of secretaries, which is headed by the cabinet secretary himself. And the next level is a network planning group, right, which is consisting of all the planning division heads of all the infrastructure ministries. They would be coming together and examining any project relating to infrastructure development with an estimated cost of more than 500 crores. So this committee or a group, which is called Network Planning Group, shall examine each proposal from the Gati Shakti perspective or the objectives of Gati Shakti, which, as I said, is looking at multimodality, last mile connectivity, increasing efficiency of the logistics sector, and its contribution to economic growth or connectivity to economic nodes. All right, so this is one level. And third level within this administrative structure is a technical support unit, which is housed in logistics division, So it becomes the secretariat of the empowered group of secretaries as well as the network planning group. So this is the hierarchy of organizations. And then this is kind of supported from the sectorial perspective by the logistics division in the IIT. Now, this is one component. Another component of the PM Gati Shakti is a digital component, which I say it's a GIS-based data digital platform, which is developed by BISEC, and it has mapped all the infrastructure assets on the ground and underground in the country. Now, these data sets have been obtained largely from the satellite imageries, which have been obtained from ISRO. And the second major source is the respective departments of Government of India and also the departments of the states. To the extent these information have been furnished and uploaded by the state governments. So this has about 700 data layers, or it's increasing every day as more and more states are uploading this set of information or data on the system. So, on an average, every day we are adding about 50 to 70 more data layers. So it's rapidly integrating the data. So this is the digital component. Now this platform is helping us to decide on the alignment of any road, rail, or location of any logistics infrastructure, maybe warehouse, multimodal logistics park, even the telephone lines, cables, transmission lines, highways. So when I try to map these things and decide on the alignment, this portal gives me a kind of suggestions and also gives me an entire set of information about what kind of clearances I would need if I choose a particular alignment, what all land acquisition and from what agencies I'll have to do the land acquisition. All these informations are just thrown up by the system. So this is a digital component in a brief. Of course, we are confining the access at present to the government sector only. And of course, we are also considering in future extending this access to the private sector to the extent it is required for planning the infrastructure developed by the private sector in the country. So these are the two basic components in a nutshell. And this entire edifice, the digital component and the administrative component, is already activated and has done a lot of work already in the last 3-4 months. During the last 3-4 months, we have examined almost 70-80 projects which were already there, finalized, or maybe were in the different stages of approval. So they have been examined and they have been rationalized. Many of the projects have been rationalized. So it would take a lot of time if I take examples also. So I'll avoid taking those examples. However, the other aspect of the logistics sector, the services, the human resource, and the digital component, the government is trying to address through the National Logistics Policy, which is under very active consideration and in an advanced stage, I can say. So that takes care of the sectoral plans for various consumer ministries or and also for the infrastructure ministries. It involves also has a strategy or it intends to develop a strategy for human resource development for the logistics sector. It also talks about adoption of technology, creation of integrated digital platforms, like you must have heard about ULIP. So that's also an important component of the logistics policy initiative. And we have other digital components as well. So they are in a different stages of development. So we'll be including that as well for a very healthy development of the logistics sector. So you'll be seeing the logistics policy in shape or notified, maybe if to have a conservative estimate, I think it should not be taking more than 2 to 3 months. So let's see, subject to the approval. However, we have got now the confidence that it will be through. We understand that just not the private sector, besides government of India, the states also have a very important role. And we are engaging the states for both, for PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, that is infrastructure development, and also for implementation of national logistics policy, which has been making, we've been hearing for long, so long. But yeah, I think the wait shall be over very soon. So the states have been involved in every stage and in every aspect of logistics sector development and the initiatives for the same. We have also introduced, 3 years ago, the LEAD study, which is a very objective and, of course, a perception-based assessment of the logistics sector of all the states and the Union territories. So that initiative is also on, and the states are on board. Recently, we have also launched, in fact, the Ministry of Finance have launched a special capital assistance scheme wherein allocation for development of capital infrastructure in the logistics sector by the states has been made, and the state shall be supported or extended an interest-free loan for such projects or financing of such projects. And this interest-free loan is for 50 years, a very long-term loan, is as good as a grant. The states are being brought on board, and they are being encouraged to be on board for development of the logistics sector. However, we have been seeing a couple of concerns for which at least the government has been working upon, and there have been a lot of brainstorming sessions and a lot of initiatives and approach adopted for finding some solution. So I would just, for the forum to discuss further, and if we can find some solution through a brainstorming or through coming together or through a collaborative, cooperative approach. Now, these 2-3 concerns, which if I am to say, one is the issue of availability of containers, and then I'll add 2 more components to the same problem: the availability of containers for export, the freight rate, and availability of space on the ships for these containers, if at all they are laden. So if this triad of the problem is finally and eventually affecting the exports of a country, and we have realized that the basic problem is about not having the indigenous shipping lines, whether it is a vessel owning shipping lines or NVOCCs in India. So there is no India flat shipping line. And since it's there, the situation, there's a kind of oligopolies which are prevailing and determining the outcome, and the freight and the availability of containers, everything. So we have even considered encouraging manufacturing of the containers, and for which a very high power committee has been constituted, which is directly reporting to the PMO. And we are looking at whatever policy initiative which government can take within its remit to encourage manufacturing of containers. However, we have also realized that manufacturing of container per se will not help the problem of availability of or non-availability of containers for export, and also the freight rates, because these containers, once manufactured, have to be bought by the shipping lines, right? And they are just depending on China for a supply of these containers, because probably we are not able to manufacture them, these containers in a cost-effective manner. So we'll have to think about if we can compete with China in manufacturing of containers in terms of the cost and the quality of the containers, and also have buyers to pick these containers from the country. This may to an extent help availability of containers for export, but I think it will not help to much extent. However, if we have our own NVOCCs to start with, or if we have our own shipping lines with India flag, maybe that can help to a large extent the availability of containers. And the second aspect of it, as I said, the freight rates. I mean, we have seen a kind of madness in the market, wherein the freight rates have increased to 500%, 600%. And I don't think such an increase has any basis, a rational basis, which we say, the demand-supply dynamics. The demand-supply dynamics does not, and should not determine the hike by 500 to 600% of the normal freight rate. Normal freight rate also, even include that markup or the margins and the profit margins, to say. And above that, if you're increasing 500 to 600% without much increase in the cost of inputs, I think we have a bounden duty to think about to what extent we will be, determined by our greed rather than the need itself. So I was just thinking aloud, and I'm just sharing with this forum. Regulation, especially the regulation by the government, is a bad word, I'll say. But the self-regulation is still a good word. If we can have some mechanism to self-regulate, there are kind of value systems, and then in technical terms, we call ethics. We have business ethics generally, but can we also think about, a sector-specific ethics? I'm a doctor, so I know there are medical ethics, and we are bound by ethics to those ethics. To the health. In extreme situations, also we'll be bound by the ethics, and if I just talk about those medical ethics, they are just because we are serving the humanity. And so is in the logistics sector or any other sector. Finally, the consumer is only human. The robots are not the consumer of your service or any product for that matter. So anything which we are producing, whether a service or a product, it's only for human consumption. Even the robots are for human consumption. All right. So can we not think about having some ethics, the ethics for logistics sector, maybe, can we think about, which may be relating to, determination of the price or the cost, and identifying certain factors, which can be the markers or the essential parameters for, determination of the cost. I was just looking at one small component, which is called inland haulage charges, right? IHC, which we call. The shipping lines or whosoever is deciding the rates for IHC. I have seen that there is on unbundling of the entire the cost element, I have seen there is a markup of 70%. Now, where does our ethics or our conscience stop us when we talk of the markup? What is the maximum and the minimum markup we are looking at in any business? If we are looking for the crisis to bank upon for exploiting it, I think this is something hit our conscience, and we should not be exploiting the crisis situation like COVID for increasing the rates like anything. There has to be a self-regulatory mechanism, and I think CII, Institute of Logistics, or CII generally, has a wherewithal to initiate a positive thought and take it forward to finally have some sort of business ethics or self-regulatory mechanism. You can have even a self-regulatory organization, which does not even require a government sanction. So this is what I would like to flag as a concern, and request you all to think about it. Second important aspect which I'd like to bring to fore and to the forum to further discuss is about the Logistics Performance Index, and which is generally published by World Bank. And we have also devised or formulated our own index, which is at present called LEADS, though LEADS only assesses the performance of the states and rank them accordingly. But we are thinking about having a national logistics index also. So kind of a national LPI. For that, we will have both the components, the objective and the perception-based components. So I would request CII to work on this and look upon how we can improve the perception about our sector and the efficiency in the sector, for which, largely it's the private sector who can make a very positive contribution. With this, I'll not take much of a time, and I'll stop here with all good wishes to CII, and congratulations for organizing this event and giving me an opportunity. Thank you very much. Over to you, Bharat.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very comprehensive talk. I think you've covered a whole spectrum of issues. I, of course, have the privilege and the honor of making my concluding remarks and to just summarize what the speakers have been saying. So I shall start with Mr. Kurup, just to summarize what he had mentioned about sustainability. I think very well brought out the change scenario from cost to sustainability. We are all aware of that. And our commitment, I think as an organization that is also part of the DHL group, we are also committed to the global pledge of zero net emission by 2050. And what all organizations today are seized with is, of course, the ESG, the environment, social, and governance issues. I think what was very well brought up also by Mr. Kurup was the convergence of financial, technology, and talent. And that sustainability today, it was surprising to note that when you spoke to such a wide spectrum of your audience, sustainability has taken precedence over all else. So I think we are in the right direction, and that is one area that we need to move with very tangible strategies on how we can handle that in future. The second talk was by Bharat, where he spoke about building economies for the future. And something very interesting, of course, is the electrification of Indian railways. And that's something that we have all been looking at, really, because especially when we are talking about the last mile, how do we deliver to the end customer? And how can we look at sustainability when we are moving towards the various types of technologies? And I think this is where Indian railways would be playing a very important role. I think as we are able to use Indian railways as they modernize, and as we are able to perhaps even use it for e-commerce, can we look at last mile deliveries? Can we look at connecting the network, various parts of the country which were hitherto connected by air or even by road? Can we look at a replacement by railways? And therefore, it's an opportunity for all of us. And then, of course, I shall try and summarize, Mr. Agarwal, what you have mentioned. You've covered various topics. Of course, the importance of logistics. I think we felt this very strongly during the pandemic when every form of transportation was shut down. And I think we, especially in aviation, we felt such a huge obligation because it was during that time when air cargo really worked. And we said, how can we help the nation? And we had aircraft that were passenger aircraft that were converted into freighters. We ourselves were a domestic operator and we operated international charter flights. So logistics, extremely important, especially when there's a crisis, because that really is the lifeline of the country. You very rightly focused on the importance of quality, cost, and resilience. And I think we're feeling it so much more today when we are looking at supply chains that are being disrupted. And therefore, how can we bring a certain resilience into our logistics? And expanding the capacity of logistics infrastructure. I think this is where, Mr. Ayirwar, it's not just by sea, it's an opportunity, it's a concern that you have mentioned, but it's also a concern that doesn't only present itself when we're looking at exports by sea, but when we're looking at the opportunities in India, India actually is so well placed strategically. When we look at ourselves and we look at a possibility of being a transshipment hub of the future, we are perhaps one of the only countries in the world where there are opportunities for export, for import, for domestic distribution, for import, value addition, as well as re-export. And therefore, how can we explore those opportunities both by sea and air? And that's where you brought in the Gati Shakti plan, the master plan. And this is something that we are all looking forward to. How do we optimize the entire Gati Shakti plan? And what you've put forward and educated us on, of course, was firstly the administrative infrastructure, the network planning, and the technical support. And I must say, I at least am extremely impressed about what you mentioned in terms of the digital component and being able to map the assets across the country. That must have been a really huge exercise. But at the end of the day, therefore, what you mentioned was very relevant. How do we look at support systems and the clearances for that? And what you also focused on was the strategy for human resource development. I think that is something that's underlying various areas that are impacting us today, not only the talent crunch, but I think what you brought up in terms of ethics. How do we therefore train our people to have a certain ethics, a certain responsibility towards the community? Because that in the end is what sustainability is really all about. And I think CII is going to be taking that on board when we are looking at the CII Center of Excellence and the Institute of Logistics. How can we therefore embed that kind of ethics in the people or the students who are being trained? And finally, of course, the National Logistics Index. How do we improve the perception? We've taken that on board as well, sir. So I would like to thank all our eminent speakers. I think it's been a very enlightening morning and a very educational morning for me, at least. We've now come to the close of our inaugural session. And apart from our speakers who've shared their expertise and their knowledge, I would also like to thank our participants and our sponsors, TVS Supply Chain Solutions, Here Technologies, and TP World, who have all contributed to a very interesting and educational morning. We have speakers in the next session who are experts in their domain and would be sharing their thoughts during the course of the day. We look forward to benefiting greatly from their knowledge and expertise. I wish you all a very enlightening day. Thank you once again to all our speakers. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your expertise with us. We're going to be taking that on board and we'll see how CII can take this forward. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.